We've got ones that can see. Welcome, everybody, to today's show. Elon Musk was also in attendance at this big event in Saudi Arabia where Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Sam Altman, and these other big tech corporations are meeting with the Saudi government. And I want to show you some of the stuff that is being discussed so that you can continue to see that Elon Musk has not flopped the way that he thinks. He's not changed his thinking because he suddenly is aligned with Trump. He's manipulating the people out there who are now supporting him. One of the things he discusses while he's there is universal basic income, and they've reworded this into universal high basic income, pretty much telling everybody that once AI is in place and once these humanoid robots are in place and all human beings lose their jobs, that they're going to live like kings and queens. That these things will wait on you hand and foot, and you're not going to have a universal basic income. You're just going to live like a really, really wealthy person. But that couldn't be further from the truth. He's changed his tone from universal basic income to universal basic high income because people like us are continuing to expose what he's actually doing and what he's actually rolling out. And one of those things, again, are these Tesla humanoid robots, the Tesla Optimus. And this, again, is another common theme that they're using to get society to accept these absolutely over-the-top, insanely created robots into our world, to allow these things to be in our homes, to allow our neighbors to have one of these things. This is how they have to convince you. So let me start with this. He's obviously using humor. We saw this with Boston Robotics, where they're trying to show you these things dancing. And of course, that works on the sheeple. Look, it's the Tesla robot doing all sorts of cool dances, including Donald Trump's YMCA dance. And everybody out there smiles and nods and thinks that this is wonderful. And this is how you get people psychologically convinced into accepting this tech into our reality. It couldn't be more ridiculous, but that's actually the mindset of the world that we live in. People are just constantly in the need for entertainment. They don't take anything seriously. And even when these people who are creating this technology tell you that it's eventually going to go rogue and not only take your job, that it potentially might murder you, people out there still laugh off the notion of this technology being dangerous. And they think that it's merely here to pamper them and to entertain them and let them live with their own personal assistant, which couldn't be further from the truth. So I want to play for you the clip of the interview that he did talking about these Tesla robots, getting them in your home. And then, of course, he compares it to CP3O or CP3O. Is that what they call this thing from Star Wars? The robots from Star Wars, which, of course, were part of the indoctrination that they've continued over the years, which Star Wars is filled with much predictive programming and lots of indoctrination with witchcraft and sorcery, but also with the machines, right? So he goes on to discuss how everybody would want their own C-3PO in their home. Who wouldn't want one? Well, me for starters. I mean, I'm not a violent person. In fact, I'm the type of person, if there's a moth in my home, I'll catch the moth inside of my hand and throw it outside. I'll let insects even live, of course, depending on the insect, unless it's harmful or dangerous. So I don't have a violent mindset, but when I first saw images from Star Wars when I was a teenager and saw pictures, and this is what Star Wars is about, all I could think about was taking a flamethrower to these things. And I still feel the same way about not only the robots that we've seen throughout movies, but about the Tesla robots that they're planning on rolling out. So he talks about how wonderful these things are. This is basic mind control, how we could have our own version of a C-3PO, but it also might potentially turn out to be like one of the Terminators from the James Cameron films. Listen to some of the stuff discussed with Elon Musk at the Saudi Arabia U.S. investment meeting.
We just showed to His Royal Highness some of your Optimus robots.
Yeah.
And to President Trump.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Tell me about them.
Yes, so we just showed several of our Tesla Optimus robots to His Highness and President Trump, and I think they were very impressed. In fact, one of our robots did the Trump dance, which I thought was pretty cool.
The YMCA, yeah?
Yeah, to YMCA. So yeah, our robots can dance, they can walk around, they can interact. I think we're headed to a radically different world. I think a good world, an interesting world. My prediction actually for humanoid robots is that ultimately there will be tens of billions. I think everyone will want to have their personal robot. You can think of it like as though you had your own personal C-3PO or R2-D2, but even better. Then who wouldn't want to have their own personal C-3PO, R2-D2? That would be pretty great. I also think it unlocks an immense amount of economic potential, because when you think of like what is the output of an economy, it is productivity per capita times population or capita. Once you have humanoid robots, the actual economic output potential is tremendous. It's really unlimited. Potentially, we could have an economy 10 times the size of the current global economy, where no one wants for anything. Sometimes in AI they talk about universal basic income. I think it's actually going to be universal high income, where anyone can have any goods or services that they want. A science fiction book recommendation that I have, which I think is probably the best envisioning of an AI future, is the culture books by Ian Banks. Very highly recommended for a non-dystopian view of the future. Now, there obviously are some risks, which illustrate perhaps if we don't do this right, you could have like a James Cameron sort of movie, Terminator. We don't want that one. But having sort of a Star Trek future would be great, where we're out there exploring the stars, discovering the nature of the universe, and a level of prosperity and hopefully happiness that we can't quite imagine yet. So I'm very excited about the future, and very glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's our absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
So again, if you haven't seen my other video that I did talking about the $600 billion deal that Donald Trump has agreed to, which is all about funding AI infrastructure with Saudi Arabia and getting the line produced and finished by 2030. That's available on my other channel. I highly recommend everybody out there go and watch it, because that's part of what they were talking about there, in addition to the fact that Elon Musk discussed how Saudi Arabia has been approved to roll out Starlink, so that, of course, nobody will be able to go offline, especially those people out in the middle of the desert where it's most important, right? We've heard him constantly talk about people getting lost in America, getting lost in national forests, getting lost in Death Valley, how they'll have Starlink, so they'll never go offline, they'll never die in the middle of the desert. Well, think about that in terms of the line, because everything that is going on inside of that prison camp is going to be hooked up to the internet, including, of course, your humanoid robots, right? And really, if you want to see what the humanoid Tesla bot is, it's really the exact same thing from the series Westworld. They almost look identical to one another. And I've covered many times in videos about Westworld and how they were using black goo in Westworld to eventually turn human beings into these Tesla humanoid robots that were featured in the show, that they were then implanting that black goo inside of people. Kind of like what happened in 2020 and 2021, where people were taking graphene oxide. And of course, all of that stuff that was going on in Westworld with the black goo going inside of humans had them controlled via a large tower, kind of like those 5G towers that you see around us, right? If you haven't seen some of these clips from Westworld, let me just show a few of them to you. And look at the comparisons between these Tesla robots and how they look identical to the robot machines in Westworld, but also how the goal is to turn human beings into these, to mix iron and clay. And those Tesla robots in the Westworld all were running on black goo controlled via these 6G towers and frequencies.
That's some kind of parasite. Black goo look familiar. They're infecting the flies with it. What was that? What? You can't hear it. I don't hear anything. Perhaps it's not at a frequency you can hear. The sound is coming from this device. The sound is somehow controlling them. Are they hosts? Unlock the cells.
I'm trying, but it's encrypted.
Do you understand now, Caleb? Welcome to my world.
There's a beauty to this world, an order. That's what we like to believe. There is an order, a grand design. It was a dream for so long, and we finally made it real. Not a better world, a perfect one.
Humans are so bound by what they can hear, they'll never understand what they don't. What else exists below their thresholds? They called this God's music, vibration. There was a frequency at which the world vibrated. It caused joy, harmony. Dip below that frequency? Chaos. Master! In chaos, the tone resonated in such a way humans couldn't process. Their bodies shut down. Their organs stopped. They thought they were experiencing God. Humans always thought it was about them. Benign deities intervening on their behalf or testing them somehow.
So this is the hellish nightmare, of course, that they're trying to turn into a reality. And as you hear the narration of the television series talk about, they look at this as a perfect world, a world of perfection, where they're the architects and the controllers, and they use frequencies and will use frequencies, of course, to control one another. So isn't it interesting we're seeing Elon Musk out there talking about getting these Tesla robots inside of humans' homes, but at the same time, he's also talking about the Neuralink. He's also talking about changing what it is to be a human being. So Westworld really covered that in great detail. And of course, as predictive programming goes, there's a reason that the Tesla bot looks identical to the machine robots in Westworld. So these people are right in front of us. They're doing these interviews almost daily. I cover as much as I can with Musk and Trump out there talking about the technology that they want to normalize. And one of the common things they're talking about is humans losing jobs, humans being enslaved by technology, universal basic income, which they're now calling universal basic high income, because they're trying to get you to accept this into thinking that all of a sudden our jobs are going to be gone, but we're all going to be living like rich folks, where these machines are going to be catering to us, pampering. Nobody goes, how are these machines running? They're running on frequencies, they're running on a network. Who controls the network? Couldn't you flip a switch and suddenly turn these things against you? Should we be regulating and allowing these things in our society? Of course not. But they do little things like showing the Tesla bot dance. Oh, the Tesla bot could make your scrambled eggs in the morning. Oh, the Tesla bot could babysit your kids until, of course, you come home from your date and one of your kids is beheaded by the Tesla bot and you're trying to figure out what happened and how we got to this point. So they are normalizing this stuff. They're going to continue to normalize this stuff. And as long as people accept it and allow it, this is the world the frightening world that we're headed towards, a world that looks just like Westworld, where eventually man and machine merges as one, where they actually take that technology, which they already did, that black goo that was referenced, and injected it inside of people's bodies and mixed man and machine. Think about the evolution we're going to see from going from Tesla humanoid bots to actual transhumans who are connected with Neuralinks to that same frequency that you saw in Westworld, where you're thinking that your mind is sending out signals to a computer, but in reality, they're sending out signals to your mind. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families, as always.